Coming up live on LiveWire, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to talk to a group of people who are proposing the Sacramento Botanical Gardens. And they are really serious about developing what is known across the world as an important aspect to your community. So stay tuned for LiveWire right after this. Okay, well, welcome to LiveWire and the Botanical Center of the Universe, which is loving flowers and all kinds of growing things. And throughout the world, there are these places called botanical gardens. And with me here in the studio is Bruce Ritter and his wife, Linda Ching, who had a dream, right? Did you have a dream about this?
Was it a dream?
We have a dream now.
And Marlene Simon, who is a television character on a television program, right?
I'm a plant lady.
You're the plant lady.
Plant lady. Yeah.
And well, welcome. We're on television too.
I know.
Yeah, we're doing TV.
This is good. Yeah.
Good. Because we have some beautiful things to show from your videos on what actually is a botanical garden. A lot of people don't know. I mean, like, what is the difference between a botanical garden and an arboretum?
You know, that's a really good question, and these days, not a heck of a lot. Originally, you would think of a botanical garden as a place where plants are grown, categorized, scientifically labeled, studied. The way back when, original botanical gardens were actually gardens where they grew medicinal plants for herbal medicine. I guess that would be around the 1600s. Yeah. Today, an arboretum is just another word for botanical garden, but technically it's a botanical garden devoted to trees. Arbor trees. So that's what a botanical garden would be then, the difference.
Are there many around?
In Sacramento, sadly, no. The nearest botanical garden, I guess I would say...
you could say the UC Davis Arboretum is a botanical garden. And then other than that, you sort of have to go... I mean, you could even say the Rock Garden in Sacramento is a botanical garden. Then you have to sort of go to San Francisco for one that is sort of a step up. Step up that has a great diversity.
Both of you have visited a lot, and I don't know if you have gone along with this guy right here to see all these botanical places. If you have, jump in. I mean, there's the world has major cities, London.
Most major cities have botanical gardens. In fact, if you go through the top 35 most populous cities in the country, depending on your source, Sacramento is number 35, but it's the only one of the top 35 without a botanical garden, without a major botanical garden.
So that's where it comes in. You're proposing that we pony up a botanical garden.
That we create, and when I say it doesn't have a botanical garden, obviously I don't mean something that's half an acre. I mean something of 50, 60, 75, up to 100 acres. A place where you can go and lose yourself in the plants.
Yeah, like I know Bruce and I are plant people. So when we get off a plane or we get out of the car in any city, the first place we go to is the botanical garden. And if we came to Sacramento, we would be sadly disappointed. We live here though, and so that's sort of sad. But we also want to point out that a botanical garden just isn't for plant people. It's for I always say it's for people who don't know they like plants yet. When I work at the conservatory at UC Davis, and by the time students and even adults leave the conservatory, they're plant people after that. So a botanical garden, if it's done right, it encompasses a lot. The diversity of plants are things that you don't see around. And also, it encompasses the arts. So basically, it's we want to wow people and educate people.
Yeah, before we started this, we have some videos to show. We're going to show it in a couple of minutes. At least the first one. And so what you said about people, plants, plants, green, leaves. Okay, I got some in my backyard.
Yeah.
However, you don't have in your backyard what we're going to see.
Right. A lot of the plants, especially in the conservatory, will be plants that you're just not going to be able to grow in your house, in your backyard. Maybe if you had a greenhouse, but some of them are just too big. Some of them have requirements that you just cannot maintain in the house. And the other nice thing about the botanical garden is that when you go, especially in the conservatory, you go there and you don't have to travel to Borneo and fight leeches to go see the pitcher plants. You can see them growing right there.
Yeah, and it's also, importantly, with a lot of habitat destruction,
Right.
it houses rare and endangered species too. So it's a living museum. It's a repository of these endangered plants. And for people who aren't going to be able to travel, don't want to travel, this will be the only time they're able to see these. And sadly, this might be the only time people see these plants in their lifetime as well.
So we would have to acquire them. Like Marlene, you would have to go and you say, okay, I want this strange plant you got here in Costa Rica.
Well, luckily, you work with a lot of different universities and botanical gardens, and that's the whole point. Is it's
They
sharing
give you clippings?
Right.
Yeah, correct, or seeds, and that's what you want. If as a good botanist, you don't want to hoard the plants for yourself. You want to make sure these plants are no longer endangered. But if they are, you want to have the best botanist and the best setup to grow them.
Yeah, that's another reason, actually, endangered. I noticed that the research center at the Royal Botanical Garden I studied it, they have a seed bank for endangered plants.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredibly important to preserve, just for a lot of different reasons, of course, because without we know that flowers and pollinators go together, and our food then goes together. So it's really, it is just the whole circle of life and supporting life. So if you lose one specimen, you don't know what you're losing behind that.
And
Yeah.
you think about, in Norway, I believe they have the World Seed Bank. They store as much as they can from not just exotic plants, but plants, even corn or wheat. Think about the concept if there was a corn blight, and our corn, it's called monoculture, that they basically have one or two varieties of corn they're growing in these farms. Think about if that were to get an infestation that could not be cured, they'd have to go back to the earlier seed varieties which have been saved and hopefully be able to breed something that's resistant. So we need to save the seeds.
Have they ever done anything like that? Have we ever lost something that's
I don't know.
The
potato blight.
the grapes,
like a world
phylloxera.
pandemic
Oh, yeah.
for grapes?
Yeah, grapes back in France are almost decimated due to phylloxera. At least the industry did. I don't know if specific species were, but for sure.
Grapes in France?
Yeah,
Oh my
they were.
God,
Our
the
wine,
country must have
our
been
wine supply was almost threatened.
decimated.
We're talking important things here.
Those are important plants.
And then there's just plants. There's an orchid that was discovered. It's called Epidendrum elensi or elense. They found 5 specimens in the wild. They collected 1 or 2 of them. It was never seen in the wild again. But now, because it was propagated, you can buy that plant for $20, $30 versus hundreds of dollars, and it's readily available and it's not extinct.
Wow.
I don't know if it was reintroduced in the wild, but that's the other goal. Plants that are extinct in the wild, you could hopefully reintroduce them at some
But
point.
I do want to get back to what a good botanical garden does. It wows you, but it also educates you, and it also allows you to be inspired and take a little bit of that knowledge and be able to go back home and do a little bit of it. So a good botanic garden will have areas where this is what you could do in your backyard. We're going through a drought. Here are some drought tolerant plants. Here are Mediterranean plants. But also you need that wow factor, because that's what people want. People, go to amusement park to be wowed,
Sure.
They go to a theater to be wowed. It's sort of almost the unattainable, because you want that. But then you also have to balance it out with people learning and taking things and being able to sort of replicate a little bit at home.
Which is why we'll have demonstration gardens, because people can then look at that demonstration garden, see, geez, I can do that at home. I never thought of putting those color combinations or those plant combinations in. And they can write down, because everything will be named, and all varieties are named. They can write down what they're seeing, take photographs, and then if they want, they can try to reproduce that at home. And trial gardens, same thing. There's There may be plants that have not been tried in Sacramento yet. We have trial gardens to determine what can be grown. But yes, we want people to learn. We want them to be wow, but we want them also to be able to take home with them ideas for their own garden and methods of gardening that they had not thought of before, especially in the drought.
Oh, good.
Well, I'd like the kids to recognize that the fruits and vegetables don't come from the grocery store. They come from a garden, and that they have seasons associated with those. And
true.
that kids can, grow and see the satisfaction of how you can stick the seed in soil and with water and sunshine and carbon dioxide, that it creates this food source. Because without plants, nothing else can exist.
Especially on this planet.
Yeah, if plants go, they produce the oxygen and the food, then we go.
Yeah. So let's talk about what kind of programming. Let's say, because it's a building and it's in a place, and it's also got yards and yards of grass and planters and things like that. So where would this kind of place? What would it contain? That's the idea. What makes a world-class arboretum?
I think of a world-class botanical garden. It's sort of in a way a vague term, but I think of it as a garden that people from around the world will want to come to. There are local little gardens, like the WPA garden in South Inland Park. It's a wonderful garden, and I'd recommend that anybody who hasn't been there go there. But I would not recommend someone who is living in England come to Sacramento to see the WPA garden, because they will be sorely disappointed after they've spent all that time traveling. On the other hand, if you want to visit a world-class garden, you go to Kew Gardens in England, you go to the New York Botanical Garden. Yeah. These are places where people from around the world will come to view, to see.
They're stunning plants.
Right.
So why don't we have a little look at some plants
Sure.
from an arboretum and from a botanical garden. Here we go. Bang.
So we're going to start with the
TV.
conservatory.
Whoa,
and
what's that?
There we go.
Yeah, so we think every botanic garden should have a conservatory. So that's the plants that are under glass that can't be grown outside. So those are going to be in this area. Your tropicals. This is a fern collection. So they require year-round
Kind of
cooler
warm
temperature.
inside, right?
Yeah, but these are cooler. So this time of year, if you had them outside, in-ground beds. So this obviously is a botanical garden that you can't grow some succulents outside. Luckily, we can. So it really is just a house for plants that don't like the climate that you're in. Yeah, that's a Stopelia gigantea. It's actually a fly-pollinated member of the milkweed family. It smells like death.
Oh, death. Death.
This is a Nepenthes. This is a tropical pitcher plant. It eats rats. You could actually find dead rats being decomposed in there.
This is a Lakwala palm. This is one of the more tropical palms that you cannot grow outside here. This is an Oncidium orchid, and it's the type that you won't get at Trader Joe's. And the other thing we want to talk about just for a moment is fountains. In our arid climate, having fountains outside is a wonderful psychological cooling factor. And these are dancing fountains. They're synchronized to music. You can have a beautiful show in the summer.
So yeah, I think just to summarize it, world-class botanic garden, we need about, 40
Minimum
acres?
of 40 acres. We'd love 100.
And a mule.
And a mule. God help us.
Well, we have to take a short break right now, but this is really exciting and interesting because I'd like to see this in our town. Okay, so hang tight. Here we go. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We'll talk more about botanical. Okay. We are back. Are we back? No. We are back. Oh, that sounds good. Okay, well, there's a Sit Here and Shakespeare. It opens on November the 5th, 2021 at the Resurrection Theater at the Wilkerson Theater in Midtown. Well, I got to narrate it. That's the first commercial in all these years that I got to read.
We were here for it.
Normally,
Wow,
you were here
special.
for a first. And your idea is here as a first. You know, I really liked hearing the idea, you know, that Sacramento is very high on the register of places to visit in the world. But it's the only one of that group of people, that group of cities that doesn't have an arboretum or a botanical garden, right?
Right.
We're one of 15 state capitals lacking a botanical garden. And considering where we are on the world stage economically, center of agriculture, farm to fork, technology, sustainability, that we've got all that great stuff, and our capital city doesn't have a botanical garden? That's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
True.
Well argued. Where's my wallet? So it would take the city and the county and maybe even the state to help us make that happen, right?
We'd be happy to do a state botanical garden.
We have done things like that before, so we can do it again.
Yeah, I think the state, just as pride in our state, not just our state, but in our state, we should have this.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. So, and Marlene, do you agree with those two?
Of course, I think everything else you remove from the list and put on there. But I wanted to point out that what Linda mentioned was farm to fork. So in addition to, you know, beautiful conservatory, fountains, exotic plants, Mediterranean plants, farm to fork, so there'd be education components of it. There'd be retraining components of it. There'd be getting people transitioned from homelessness to job training. So we want to incorporate a lot that is important to the city.
Yeah, issues that are important.
Exactly.
I can see that, and I also, you know, providing opportunities like an area and all of that beauty of those flowers for weddings and things like that, parties.
Well, absolutely. We feel there should be an amphitheater for having summer concerts. Not necessarily big, loud rock concerts, but, you know, intimate concerts. You can do the 1812 Overture. You know, we'll have cannons, I guess. But concerts, art shows. We came up with the idea when we were in France at a castle where they had beautiful sculptures every summer. It was like a contest. So we thought, gee, why not have an outdoor sculpture garden and invite local artists to show their work. Our gift shop, we do plan to have local artists sell their work at our gift shop in addition to botanical paraphernalia to purchase, but that also an artist who maybe can't get into a gallery, they could on consignment bring their stuff into our gift shop and sell that so they get exposure. So we really want this to be an all-encompassing community center in addition to a garden. As far as the farm to fork goes, we'd love to put in, if we have the large enough space, a 2-acre urban garden, and we can demonstrate new techniques for growing. You know, a lot of the fields where they're growing almonds, and California grows 80% of the world's almonds, a lot of those are flooded when they're irrigated versus drip irrigation. So we would like to have a 2-acre garden with an orchard in it where we could demonstrate all these low water use methods of growing. Marlene came up with a great little statistic on almonds that she told me about the other day.
I don't know if it's 100% correct, but I mean, I've heard this
That's
going
okay.
around.
There's only 1,000 people watching.
Exactly. I've heard this, that it takes 1 gallon of water for 1 almond to be produced.
I have heard this too.
Now the
My
almond
mother
growers
told me
aren't going to
that.
like us, Bruce.
No.
Way to go, Bruce.
So, you know, when you eat your almond joy bar, you're eating coconut, chocolate, almonds, and
2
5
gallons
or 6
of water,
gallons
5
of
gallons
water.
of water.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So you two were walking down the street one day. You said, "Oh, you know, we went to that wonderful. You know, it was so great, and we don't have one. And we have to fight the fight and make it happen. Is that right?"
It's a strange way this all developed. We were having dinner with a friend of ours in an Italian restaurant, and that's important because the first botanical garden was in Italy. And Linda, and we said, you know, why don't we have a botanical garden in Sacramento? And Linda came up with a little fact that I didn't know.
Well, I noticed that about 10 days before in the Sacramento Bee, they talked about the Land Park Golf Course wasn't doing well. And I told this to these
That'd
two.
be a
and they're
perfect
like,
place.
"Oh, it would be perfect. There would
Right.
be, you know, those Amazona water lilies in the pond.
Yeah.
And, there's already parking, there's big trees, there's sprinklers.
A well?
It's a great place for a garden.
That's right.
And
But how would I
so-
tee off if I were in
Yeah.
the middle of
Well, yes, but that was the catch.
So Bruce wrote up a business plan, and we took it to a city council member's office, and she began to pass it around. So we've met with 7 out of 8 city council members' offices so far. They all pretty much recognize that we need to have a garden, and they're in support, so they're trying to help us find land.
Sure, I think that, and it'll take a while, but you know, the city actually, when these things do get into its brain, does really come through. I've known that in the city, you know. It may be not exactly what you would envision, but it usually is, you know, if you push right, it can come out well.
Well, we've been working hard with the city and with the county even, trying to find a location that will work. We do want, like Marlene said, a minimum of 50 acres. But again, if you want to have space to wander around in the garden and get lost, because that's a big part of being in a botanical garden is to get lost in the garden, you need a good 80, 90 acres. There's an interesting little phenomenon that in Japan they call it forest bathing, and they've done studies, and it has been discovered, and it's no surprise, that the more time you spend in a natural environment, the healthier you are psychologically and physiologically.
And what is it called
The
again?
Japanese call it, well, the translation is forest bathing.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
yes.
Can we do that just briefly and watch some more of that, and then we'll come back and finish our talk. Here we go
Sure.
with.
Actually,
What's
it's
it called?
forest bathing. We're going to talk a little bit about the Mediterranean climate, and which is what we have here in Sacramento.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So it's important, especially during we're coming into a drought, and I tell people what to plant is, you know, there's natives, there's California natives, but there's also different Mediterranean zones, the Chilean area,
These are all
Australian.
Mediterranean plants.
Yes.
Yeah, Bruce, you want to?
Sure, that's the Mediterranean fan palm, which you can buy at all the nurseries. It's from the Mediterranean. This is an Aphophia. It is from the South African region. A lot of beautiful plants come from South
Can't buy
Africa.
that.
You can buy this locally too.
Oh, wow.
And believe it, you know, there's so many varieties in Aphophia, and their gladioli are actually originated in South Africa. Now, this is a hybrid. This is not the type you're going to see, but the Clivia plant, that's another South African beauty, and that grows wonderfully here. It prefers shade,
Dry shade.
dry shade, and does exceptionally
Oh,
well.
look at that.
This is a flower that's growing in my backyard. It's called the Lugospermum. It's a member of the Protea family, and the Protea family is actually a macadamia nut family. And this is a mimulus. It's a hybrid, but it is a California native.
It looks like somebody just dipped a brush on those.
Yeah.
And this is Spiraxis. And
So California natives are great, and I know people just love to plant California natives, but we hope to encourage people to plant Mediterranean plants so you could have year-round interest, year-round pollination, and Australia is another one of the Mediterranean zones. And of course, the Mediterranean, same climate as us. That's
I noticed that
dry.
Well, we were finishing there. This line went over to Australia.
right.
What's all that?
That's one of the Mediterranean zones. They have a dry
they have
summer.
a
and
Mediterranean
yeah,
zone.
Mediterranean zone. So, of course, the Mediterranean area, California, Chile, South Africa, and Australia. But our climate is more in tune with parts of South Africa than it is with Humboldt, which is California.
Right.
So when you say plant California native plants, meaning that it's going to be hot and dry where these plants are from in the summertime, and then ideally wet in the winter. So, but you know, this is just something we want to educate people with as far as what to plant in their backyard. So we hope to have all the zones planted.
And frankly, the beauty of some of the other zones, like the Australian climate, again, it's not the entire continent. It's the southwest portion of Australia, that a lot of the Australian plants are beautiful year-round. They don't defoliate, they don't die back, so you can have a year-round beautiful garden.
Guess what? We got 1 minute to go. If I were somebody and I wanted to be part of your gang and join and help you and throw $1,000 in, what would I do?
Well, the first thing we always say is go to our website. It's sacbo.org, SACBO.org.
Sacbo.
Sacbo. And you can contact us at info@sacbo.org. And then there is a Facebook page. You can just plug in Sacramento Botanical Garden on the Facebook page. You'll find us.
And there's Instagram, which
There's
is
Instagram.
SACBO1.
Thank you so much, Marlene.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Linda.
Thank you, Ray.
We have 30 seconds to go, so what's your last call?
You have a last word?
We're going to get a botanical garden in Sacramento because we've been working really hard on it. And really, nobody has said we shouldn't have one.
Yep.
Bravo. I go with that.
Let's join the list of cities with a garden and become a world-class city with a world-class destination.
Yeah, and remember, you plant a garden for tomorrow, and if we want our future to be, well taken care of. So now's the time to do it.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
three,
you.
for being here and talking to me about this. It's a very wonderful idea that you have, and I'd like to see it. Come back when I can go in and see the new botanical garden.
Thank
All right.
you.
That's all the time we have today on LiveWire. Thank you. And we'll be back next week with some important information in your cultural life. Bye.